Today's lesson is over classifying and measuring angles. These notes can be found on pages 1 through 3 in your notebook. A few of the things that we'll be talking about today are from 6th grade, so you may remember them once we start talking about them, and there are a few new concepts as well. Some of the vocabulary that we'll be discussing today you may recognize from the benchmark. Even though you may have not known at the time what it meant, there were some of these concepts that you may recognize from seeing on the benchmark you took a few weeks ago. So we're going to start out today by just classifying angles. What type of angle is it based upon its angle measurement? So there are 4 types of angle measurements that we're going to be discussing. The first one being a right angle. Right angles measure exactly 90 degrees, no less and no more. Acute angles. Acute angle is any angle that's less than 90. So it's like your small angles that don't open up very wide. Obtuse angles are angles that measure between 90 and 180. So anything greater than 90, but less than 180. And then last, your straight angle, it's like a straight line. It measures exactly 180 degrees. So your obtuse angle is between your right angle, because it's more than 90, but less than the 180. So just by looking at these angles, let's classify them as acute, obtuse, right, or straight. So take just a few seconds, and by looking at them, see if you can identify what type of angle they are. The first one's given to you. They tell us it's 35 degrees, which is obviously less than 90, so this would be an acute angle. Number 2, you can tell opens up wide. If it were a right angle, it would be straight up, but you can tell that it opens up even wider than that, making it an obtuse angle. Oops, I spelled that wrong. And the last one is a right angle, and the way that we can tell that is this little box right here in the corner. That's the symbol that's given to us to tell us that it is a 90-degree angle, because sometimes it may be 91 or 89, but that symbol right there tells us that it is a right angle. The next thing we're going to talk about are complementary and supplementary angles. These are 2 different types of angle relationships. I'm going to highlight these words just so they stand out a little bit more. All right, so 2 angles are complementary if the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. So when 2 angles added together equal 90 degrees, they are considered complementary to one another. It can be done in 2 different ways. You can have a 90-degree right angle that is split up into 2 angles, so that obviously when you added them up, they would equal 90. For example, maybe one of them is 60 and the other is 30. When you add them up, their sum is equal to 90. The other way that you might see complementary angles given is 2 completely separate angles, such as an angle of 55 and an angle of 35. But their sum still equals 90 degrees, so they're still considered complementary. They don't necessarily have to be touching each other. And then you're given a picture of a non-example. You can tell that angle 1 and angle 2 are not complementary because they form a straight line together, which we know is 180 degrees. That leads us to our next term, supplementary angles. 2 angles are supplementary if the sum of their measures is a 180. The 2 angles added together equal 180. So like complementary, where 2 angles sum equals 90, supplementary is where 2 angles sum is 180. The example you see here is angles 3 and 4, so maybe an example for this would be like 150 degrees and 30 degrees, because 150 plus 30 is 180. And just like the other example I showed you, they don't necessarily have to be touching. They can be 2 completely separate angles, but as long as their sum still equals 180, oops, sorry, that's 40. As long as their sum still equals 180, they are called supplementary angles. They are supplements of one another. So we're going to determine whether or not these two angles are complementary, supplementary, or neither. So let's find their sums. 50 plus 36. 0 plus 6 is 6. 5 plus 3 is 8. I'm looking for either 90 for complementary or 180 for supplementary. So 86 is neither one of those. All right, 175 plus 5 is 180. Now, which one is that? Complementary or supplementary? Good. Supplementary is the one where the sums equal 180. I'm just going to abbreviate. And then the last one, 60 plus 30 equals 90, which means that those two angles are complementary to one another. The next section, calculate the missing angle. So we can tell by the figure, they even show us in this little point, this little symbol right here, that is a 90-degree angle. So these two angles are complementary to one another. Their sum together is 90. If we know that one of them is 28, subtract that from 90 to find the difference. That must be the measurement of the missing angle. 10 minus 8 is 2, and 8 minus 2 is 6. So the missing angle must be 62 degrees. Number 8, these two angles are supplementary to one another. I can tell because together they form a straight line, which I know is 180 degrees. If one of them is 46, subtract the 46 from 180. Borrow from the 8. 10 minus 6 is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. So the missing angle here is 134 degrees. These two terms, 46 and 134, they're called complements. So if you're ever asked, supplements. This is supplementary angles. So if I asked you for the supplement of 46, that would be 134. Or if I asked you for the supplement of 46, that would be 134. If angle J and angle K are supplementary, and angle K equals 65 degrees, what is the measurement of angle J? So supplementary meaning 180. So if I know one of them is 65, subtract it from 180 to find the angle measurement of the second one. So 115 must be the measurement of angle J if those two are supplementary to one another. Angle A and angle B are complementary, meaning their sum is 90 degrees. The measurement of angle B is 38. What is the measurement of angle A? So find the difference to find the missing sum. 52 degrees. 52 and 38 are complements of one another because their sum is 90 degrees. Now, when we measure angles with protractors, protractors usually have two sets of numbers that go in opposite directions. And that's so that you can measure angles that open to the right or angles that open to the left. That's why you have two different sets of numbers. So you have to be careful that when you're measuring, you're using the correct set of numbers. So with your protractor, let's practice measuring the angles below. We want to line up the vertex, which is the corner of our angle, with the circle, the middle section of our protractor. And then as you can see, this line here on my protractor, the dotted green line, that's going to lay on the bottom line of my angle. So I want to lay it right on top of there. One thing you might want to do is extend the rays so that you can get an accurate measurement. What that means is I'm going to extend this line so that it goes out even further. Because otherwise it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to scoot it over some. It's kind of hard to see where the numbers would line up. I'm going to move it over just a tad. And looking at my protractor, it looks like that hits right about like 128 degrees, close to 130. You also see the bottom row of numbers looks like it's about 52. So ask yourself, either I have 128 or I have 52. This angle is big. It opens wide. So would that make it an obtuse angle, 128, or an acute angle, 52? If it opens big and wide, it's an obtuse angle, which means it must be the 128. And like we just said, that's an obtuse angle. All right, so the next one, I'm going to go ahead and extend my line right away so that when I line my protractor, it's nice and high. And I'm going to scoot it over so it's right on top of it. Line my vertex up. And you can tell that this is a 90-degree angle. You can see it right there on the protractor. And we know that 90-degree angles are called right angles. So take a minute if you have a protractor and try measuring the next two angles on your own and then classify them. Are they obtuse, straight, right, or acute? When I line my protractor up on number 16, it looks to me like that's about a 30-degree angle. Now, if this was a homework or assignment or a test or a quiz, if you gave an answer like 29 or 31, anything relatively close to 30, we would give you credit for that. And that type of angle is an acute angle. Moving it over to number 17, this angle opens up closer to the 50, 48 or 49. I'm going to put 49 degrees. And because that's less than 90, that is still an acute angle.